now since I have my brand, whether it's, manga, whether it's graphic design, whether it's whatever, as just, as just a person that's making content, this as well. You can't just be on one platform anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be on multiple things.
Like you're like, yo, I'm a volleyball instructor, I'm a teacher, and I also work at a gun and fishing store. Like,
yeah.
All of those things are just like, man, I write a manga. Like all those shit are just like random. That's crazy.
2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I finally got my first deer. And that was like a very monumental thing for me, but also for everybody else, because, that's just something not a lot of people can do.
I'm fucked because it's like, yo, I don't know. It's like, I'm going to run out there and fucking body slam a deer and choke it out. It's like, I'm never even going to catch it in the first place, right?
Like I said, creators will make like a white looking character and they give him black hair and all of a sudden they're supposed to be like black now just to like bring me in. Like, don't do that. Like, try, at least try.
Yo, you wasn't pulling no chicks talking about, yo, did you watch that new Naruto or did you watch, like, never. I kept that on the low. I hid that. But speaking of, I like your YouTube channel, bro.
Oh, thanks, man.
Yeah, that shit's fucking, that shit's dope, bro. It's like, I'm watching it and I'm like, yo, the way that you talk on your YouTube channel is almost like flawless. Like I don't know if you're like doing everything and then you record yourself talking and narrating everything that you're doing, or if you're doing it at the same time. All right, cool. But either way, it's fucking dope, bro. You sound good.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. I try to get at least one YouTube video out a month now because it's just I'm so busy.
Okay. How does that work for you? And before we get into that, I want to introduce everybody to Chris Burns. He is the creator, writer, artist for chikarapowerofgod. He's got a crazy YouTube channel that has a whole bunch of cool shit on there, tutorials, how to make anime logos, all kind of crazy shit. So, anybody that I fuck with and that I see talent in, I've also seen the progression on the growth of his artwork. So I wanted to get him on here. So welcome to the fucking show, bro. But yeah, so yeah, tell me how and what got you into creating your own YouTube channel.
Well, I started, I guess I started YouTube. Well, yeah, let me just say, I started YouTube probably back in like 2000, I want to say like maybe 13 or 14. It was an old account. It wasn't the one I have now, but it was an older account. It was back when YouTube, I guess, was at its like peak in terms of just like where you want to watch stuff, that's where you go. Because there wasn't TikTok, there wasn't, all this other stuff. It was just YouTube.
I remember those days.
And back then, I know it seems crazy to think that like it was so long ago. And it's just like, bro, how far we've come. But I started back then, and I did art stuff back then, but it was like all traditional. Because back then I was like, I had no digital tablet. I didn't have any of that because I'm pretty sure none of that was even like out yet when I was doing this. Or at least like not to how it is now. So back then, I started YouTube. I was doing traditional videos, same type of stuff, like trying to do tutorials, trying to do time lapse, that type of stuff. My art was atrocious back then. So I was like, I don't know why I made these. Like, I don't know what I'm talking about. But at that point, I guess at the beginning, that's kind of what segued. Because after I made that account, I didn't do YouTube for like a solid probably like 5 or 6 years because I was like Instagram had come out. And of course, like TikTok eventually came out. So it was just, YouTube kind of for a minute wasn't like the place to be. So I was like, well, I don't need to do it. I'm doing this other stuff. And now since I have my brand, whether it's, manga, whether it's graphic design, whether it's whatever, as just a person that's making content, this as well. You can't just be on one platform anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be on multiple things. So around 2000, I'd say probably 19 is when I made my current YouTube channel. And I tried to do some content, try to do some stuff. Some things worked, some things didn't. And I did complete revamp of my YouTube, I want to say in like either late 2020, early 2021. And that's pretty much what it looks like now. All the videos, all the branding, everything looks how it is now currently.
Okay. All right. Yeah, dope. I mean, like I said, I gotta fucking compliment you because I'm on the fucking YouTube grind as well. And it's like juggling all of these different platforms and having to post on this specific time and then having to post on this one at this specific time. And I feel like nothing kind of like connects with each other. But anytime that somebody has a specific platform that I see, I was like, oh, like this is pretty dope. Like I could see this popping and growing over time. It's like I always gotta shout them out on it. So, where are you from, by the way? You say you were on the East Coast, but where exactly?
Born and raised here in Georgia. I'm about an hour and a half south. Well, not an hour and a half, maybe like an hour and 15 minutes south of Atlanta. I'm in the
Okay,
country.
cool. So you probably just say most people it's like, oh, I'm from Atlanta, even though you're like out of
Yeah,
the country.
we're not. It's just easier to say I'm from Atlanta because once you go south of Atlanta or north of Atlanta, no one knows like anything you're talking about. But when you say, "Oh, I'm from Atlanta," everyone's like, "Okay, I know where that is."
All right, cool, cool. Yeah, how is it growing up in that area of Georgia? So I know, when you grow up in a specific city, you can kind of envision it. But once you start to go outside of these cities and you get to like these small pockets of communities, what's it like growing up in that area? And how'd you even get into manga in that aspect without being outside of a major city?
For me, well, like I said, I'm in the country, so like it's for me, it's I grew up super southern, the whole 9 yards, very small. I wouldn't say small town because like once you get out of Atlanta, there's like you said all these little pockets and communities and stuff. So it's still a pretty good mix of just people in general. I guess
Mm-hmm.
the best way to break Georgia up if you just have never been here, um, south of Atlanta is going to be more diverse in terms of like I guess people of color, and then when you go north of Atlanta, it's more I guess higher class. It's still diverse, but just more higher class. So it's more of like for example, you don't really see any like high class like Japanese people down here where I am. It's very
Mm-hmm.
very rare that you would see. But if you go to Atlanta or go north of Atlanta or in those areas, you're going to see because there's more money up there. So
Okay.
that's just kind of the dynamic, at least for Georgia. Um, but growing up, I grew up in a pretty diverse Asian community. So pretty much from a very young age, I was exposed to Asian culture and anime since I was probably like 6 years old. I'd say maybe 5 or 6 years old. But growing up with it, you don't really think of it as being like out of the norm. It's just I go into like an Asian shop with my dad or like a Asian festival, and and it's just there. So I'm just like, oh, okay, Dragon Ball Z's on or Yu Yu Hakusho's on or whatever's on at the time. So it was just normal. But I really didn't fully, I guess, get into really anime and manga until I was a little older. Like once Naruto dropped in the States, I was around like 10 years old. Is when I really started to see the difference. Like, oh, this isn't just like American cartoons. Like this is something completely different. And
Mm-hmm.
just from watching Naruto from probably 10 to 12, and eventually I started reading it, I realized that, wow, this is like completely different than like everything Western. And I really wanted to dive into that culture and really start figuring out because I knew at a very young age, at 5 years old or 6 years old, I knew that I wanted to make comic books. Originally, I wanted to make Sonic comics, like work for Archie and work for the Sonic the Hedgehog line and do that kind of
Okay.
stuff because that's like I love Sonic. I still love him to this day. Um, but around like 12 or 13 is when I made that decision to stem away from American Western style comics and to branch into this kind of unknown Eastern style of storytelling. Because at the time, the only things that were being made manga and anime wise were from Japan. There were no American manga artists yet, except for maybe like Mark Crilly. White was just probably coming into the frame, and like some other people, maybe. So it was still
Mm-hmm.
very, very new, very unknown.
Okay. All right. Cool. Yeah, I almost feel it's still a little unknown as far as like that territory of American anime.
Mm-hmm.
People still kind of consider it's like, oh, that's if it's American, it's just a regular cartoon, and it has to
Mm-hmm.
be anime if it's Japanese. But yeah, I was speaking with the owner of Pulse DeAndre. He was like, "Yo, you never heard of the International Mangaka or Manga tournament?" It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yo, they actually put it so it's no language, it's just the pages, and you can't
Mm-hmm.
tell what country it comes from. So I think that's pretty cool because it's like, yo,
Oh yeah.
we understand either the way the story's told or the artwork that this is a manga or this is an American cartoon or comic book.
Mm-hmm.
So that's cool. And one thing you
Yeah.
mentioned is like you started watching Naruto at 10. So like, well, I always ask that question. It's like, yo, where'd you start watching anime? What's your favorite anime? Because I kind of want to pinpoint what somebody's age is and where they started watching anime. So that kind of tells me where you're at. I started watching Naruto when I was maybe in like high school. I think. And that was when it was just starting to get to the United States, and
Mm-hmm.
we had to like illegally download shit like that to watch it in
Oh man.
Japanese. But yeah, that's like back in the day LimeWire shit, man. I'm like I said, I'm old as shit, so I had to go through the lengths to find an anime to watch. What is your favorite anime?
Well, for my whole life, it used to be like it used to be Naruto. Like I used to be like, "What's your favorite anime?" And it was always without like a second guess Naruto. But like probably within the past, like I'd say 2 years, Attack on Titan has literally pretty much just taken everything that I've ever like said this is my favorite and pretty much just blown it out of the water. And I just finished Chainsaw Man season 1, so. And Chainsaw Man might actually, if once it's like completely done and I watch it all the way through, it has potential to knock Attack on Titan out of the running for me as well. But at the moment, Attack on Titan's like my number one favorite story of all time.
Okay. All right. I like that. I can kind of resonate with that. I love Attack on Titan. I think the storytelling is phenomenal. The just the whole aspect of these weird ass giants that eat people alive. It's almost like zombies, but they're massive. And when I first saw the first episode, I still remember my friend Jose explaining it to me. He was like, this show Attack on Titan, and I didn't really understand the way he was explaining it because I was half listening, but he was like, yo, fuck everything. He was like, watch this. And I watched the first episode, and in that time period or that style that they're dressing and the way that the buildings look, I'm like, oh shit, I'm definitely not getting into this. But until that end of that last episode where the colossal titan blows a hole through the wall, had me fucking hooked.
Such a solid show. I love it so much. I finished the manga, but I'm ready for the next part of the anime because it just looks so good. They're doing such a good job.
Yeah, I finished the manga during COVID, like during lockdown and shit. I can't even remember how it ended. Like now, as the anime is going through, I'm like, oh, all right, I remember that, or I remember this situation happened. I'm waiting for them to come out with the final part. It's just taking forever. But
It
I
really
understand,
is.
you know, you have to build up the anticipation, but also doing the animation and everything that takes a lot of fucking work.
It does. It really does.
Yeah, an insane amount of work. Now you do the way that you do your project, and I'm hopping around, but whatever. I like to fucking
Oh, you're good.
shit like this. So you do your project, you do the writing, and you do the artwork for it.
Yes. Yes, I do everything. I say I do everything, but I do have help from my editor because he's my editor. But he also does help me with, I guess, how things flow sometimes because he majored in writing and literature, so he has a better, I guess a better grasp of it fundamentally rather than me just being like all over the place. He can look at it without being emotionally invested. I guess that's the best way to say it, and tell me like this is dumb or this needs to wait or you should do this instead of this. So he does help me out a lot.
Okay, yeah, you always need like that second pair of eyes. And you were saying that in one of your YouTube videos, you were doing the logo tutorial, and I can tell you have some sort of design background, or maybe you went to school for design because you were talking about building the thumbnails. And that's like the same thing that you would do for logos, business cards, character design, like everything. And then you were like, just draw it out super quick. And just seeing that process from you creating the logos, I can tell that's probably the same process that you go through when you're writing or when you're designing your characters. But that's a lot of work, man. There's very few times that I run into someone where they're the writer and they're the artist. Now, you probably save a lot of money on it, but how long does it take you to just do that whole process for a chapter?
It depends, I guess, on what's going on in the chapter. So with Chikara, at least, I had so much time to work on it once I started it when I was in college. And roughly, because in college, I say this in the most humbling way I possibly can, but college was not hard for me. So I had plenty of time to do what I wanted because I was pretty much I already knew what I was doing before I went there. So during that period of time, all the way through like COVID starting and ending, I had so much time to just sit in my room for hours and just dedicate my life to literally working on pages. That's how I was able to, at least in the beginning, crank out chapters 1 through, I don't know, all the way up to chapter really like 11 or 12 in less than 2 years. Because I was doing like, either 3 pages a day or sometimes I do a page a day. Sometimes it would just depend on what I had going on life-wise. But
Yeah.
now, since I guess I'm adulting more, I have multiple jobs and I'm doing stuff. I try to at least get a page done a day. Since the content is being released free, and I'm also working on Chikara, but also my other story, Gun Game. I'm balancing two at the same time now. I try to get at least a page done a day. That way, in a month a chapter can come out roughly or something like that, because I'm not, since the content's coming out for free, I'm not pushing myself now to really try to get a book done within a year because
Yeah.
the content's going to be free anyway, so it's no point in like rushing myself, just so it'll come out when it comes out.
All right. You have any plans on like making money on whatever it is, whether it's Chikara or the other project that you're working on, your YouTube channel, like anything?
Ideally, I mean, once, am I, I would love if, I could make money and make a living off of it. I'm gonna, Chikara is in a rebrand state, but once it's done being rebranded, the books will be back out on Amazon, and, people were, they were buying them. So it was, it wasn't like a plethora of money, but, there was support, and, I appreciate it. But for me, I have so many, like, I guess, hobbies and interests as well as manga, like, and now that I'm older, because I was just talking about this with somebody else. Like when I was like 20 or 19 or 20, I had this dream of like, I want to be manga artist full time. I want to go to Japan and work on manga. Like that's like, if that doesn't happen, like I didn't make it or whatever. But now that I'm like older, I've seen that I like so many different things, and manga being a big part of it. If I'm not, making manga for a living, I'm okay with, still doing it, but doing my other stuff on the side, because I'm a volleyball coach, I'm a teacher, I work part-time at a hunting and fishing store. Like these are all aspects of my life that I really like, and they're all bringing me income, and I'm still able to still work and do my manga and YouTube and all that stuff, and not, have to pick one or the other.
Okay. That's like a weird, like you're like, yo, I'm a volleyball instructor, I'm a teacher, and I also work at a gun and fishing store. Like,
yeah.
all of those things are just like, and I write a manga. Like all those shit are just like random. That's crazy. At the gun and fishing store, like, are you like a real like huntsman, or you just like work there?
Mm-hmm. So this past year was my first year officially getting my hunting license and hunting. I got my first buck this season, which a lot of people said that wasn't. They were like, we're gonna be honest with you. You're probably not gonna get your first deer for like another like 2 years. It takes a lot of work, and it did. I'm not saying like none of this took work. Like I was in the woods almost every day just trying to learn this stuff because I didn't grow up as a hunter. I grew up as a fisherman. Fishing is big in my family and my community, so I grew up fishing. So hunting's like completely unknown territory for me. And literally, like I think like 2 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, I finally got my first deer, and that was like a very monumental thing for me, but also for everybody else, because that's just something not a lot of people can do.
Yeah.
But in terms of like hunting in general, I'm very new to it. I'm not like an avid hunter at all. Like I'm a baby in the hunting world.
No, that's fucking dope, man. I always like finding out weird, not weird to you, but like that I would never expect someone to be into, which for you is obviously the hunting. Have you ever, or do you butcher your own meat when you hunt, or you bring it somewhere to they do it for you?
So for the deer, I took to a processor, but for other stuff like rabbits and like that kind of thing, I know personally how to do that because it's not that big. And for fish, I do my own stuff just because it saves money, and we just try to store up our freezers so that way, if prices go crazy for some reason, we got food to eat.
It's a fucking good skill to have, man. If the end of the world fucking comes, it's like you already know what to do. You already got
Yeah.
I'm fucked because it's like, yo, I don't know. It's like I'm gonna run out there and fucking body slam a deer and choke it out. It's like I'm never even gonna catch it in the first place, right? I mean, I'm fast. I ran track, so I can quick. I could probably catch something, but not no deer, man. They're fucking quick. Maybe able to like trap them like somehow. I can outsmart them. There we go. Right, so that's cool, man. So that's cool. So let's bring it back. So your favorite anime was Naruto. Now it's Attack on Titan. We're watching Chainsaw Man. Is there any other new anime that you're checking out right now?
At the moment, I think Chainsaw is the newest. My friend told me to check out Blue Lock, the new soccer anime that just came out.
Okay.
I'm not a big soccer guy. I played soccer in high school, but like in terms of just following it in general, like I know the sport, but it's not something, I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta watch the next soccer match. Like, so it looks interesting.
I feel the same way, but this last World Cup, made it seem like, all right, maybe I should start paying attention to soccer because that shit was everywhere. It was more, I
It
saw it
was.
more on social media than I had ever seen it before. And
Hmm.
because it was in Saudi Arabia, there was just so many funny moments that was in the World Cup that was hilarious. So I was like, man, I need to kind of get back into soccer.
I'll see. Maybe I will. I'll check. But I am definitely gonna check out Blue Lock, and I'm watching My Hero right now too. Until the season, I'm caught up on My Hero.
Okay. I'm
Trekking
not
through
caught
One
up on
Piece.
that.
I'm on like episode 600. So
Oh shit.
I'm
How do you
trying to
how do
get
you
caught up.
how do you feel? Were you like a diehard One Piece fan in the beginning, or you just started it?
So I was off and on. I'd say like me and my friends started getting into One Piece probably. We were maybe like it was back when it was still on 4Kids, like the
Okay.
really terrible like dubbed version. So that was like had to been like 2007 or 8. And
Okay.
just periodically, I'd go back and watch some, and then I'd fall off of it, watch some, fall off of it. But probably like I'd say last year or the year before, I just was like, I'm gonna grind One Piece because there was like nothing else I wanted to watch right now. So I got to like episode 500, and I was like, oh, I'm halfway there. Like, there's no reason to not stop now. Like,
Yeah. I'm doing the same thing. I'm on episode like 60 though, so
oh,
nowhere near, nowhere yet. And you know what? I just restarted Shippuden. So I was like, yo, there's
oh,
a lot of shit that I can't like remember on Shippuden. I also
mm-hmm,
read the manga too. So
mm-hmm,
sometimes when I'm reading manga, I'm like, man, fuck the anime. I already know what's happening. And I was like, you know what? Let me go back. And there's a lot of shit in the anime that I missed, or maybe I
mm-hmm.
wasn't paying attention or whatever it is. So I'm watching shit now and I'm like, oh shit, I never seen this like movement and in colors. Like, yo, this looks dope. Um, so yeah, I understand the grind of going back to a previous anime to kind of like check things out. What do you think of Vinland Saga? Season 2 just dropped. Well, just dropped on Netflix.
Um, so I never watched the first season, but people were telling me like they're like, if you like Attack on Titan, like you gotta watch Vinland Saga. And I don't even have Netflix anymore, like at all. Like I got rid of it a long time ago. So at the moment, like unless it's on like some other platform, I mean, maybe I will start watching it now since Chainsaw's done. I can have something just to kind of watch that's fresh and see like if I like it. But just from
Mm,
like I never was a big Viking guy. Like my friends are, they're into like a lot of Viking and Nordic lore and stuff. Like I never was because I'm more into like the Asian lore and like that kind of stuff. So it was just like I never really, even with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, like I love Assassin's Creed, but with the latest game,
mm.
like I'm just like I don't want to play this. Like I don't
Yeah, not invested.
care.
I could see that. You know, the thing with Vikings is they're either on those tiny ass boats or in like fields of forest fighting. There's really
Mm-hmm.
like I don't, when I think of Vikings, I don't think of castles. I don't think of,
Mm-hmm.
I just think of mad wood boats and
Yeah.
them like screaming in axes, like,
Yeah.
but what's cool about Vinland Saga is the storyline. It's like it's almost like a perfect storyline for revenge. And then the way that the last episode ends, you're like, holy fuck, like that was insane. It's just really good storytelling. And obviously the action is like fucking on point, like hand to hand combat, shit like that.
Okay. I'll definitely
Yeah.
see if I can find it somewhere. See if I can watch it.
Sometimes I need the anime that isn't so OP with their powers, like something that is simple, hand to hand
Very
combat.
realistic.
No beams, no I mean, is there an anime? I guess there's animes that are realistic, but those are probably like ones that pitch that they're realistic.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this one they kind of like stretched what the human is capable of doing a little bit, but it's not too much. It is really good.
Okay.
Really good fucking storytelling. Um yeah, what else am I watching? Vinland Saga, Mob Psycho season 3 came out and I heard that was the last thing, like they just finished it.
Oh wow,
I
that's
was freaking
crazy.
pissed. I love that shit. I love Mob Psycho, One Punch Man, just the art style.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that he kind of started off as just an online manga that
Yeah,
pretty just like took off, and that's crazy.
yeah. If you look at some of like the old One Punch Man art, it's insane. On because he has an artist now that does stuff for him, but like the stuff that
Mm-hmm.
he was doing, like. And I tell this to new creators all the time because a lot of creators are like, I have to wait until my art is like this good before I start working on a story or like, but because you want it to look good because visual appeal is great, but like the creator of One Punch Man, like if you go back and look at his artwork, like, and this is no offense to him, like I'm not trying to be mean to him, but like it's not the best. And it's like, and if you can write a story where the artist's subpar, but people still read it because of the story, and then it gets to the point where you can make money off of it, hire an artist, really make it how you want it, and then from there it gets an anime adaptation or whatever. Like that's what your goal should be. Your goal should be the story first, the art second, rather than the art first, the story second. It just make your life a whole lot easier.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I'm always thinking it's like, yo, what's more important? Is it the artwork or is it the story? And it definitely has to be the story. Like, think of you ever see Shin Chan?
Mm-hmm.
Bro, the artwork in that is trash, but the writing and the joke is top fucking
Mm-hmm.
tier, and that's why that is a fucking legendary comedy anime right there.
Oh yeah.
Right? Artwork don't gotta be fired. That artwork is atrocious. But
Mm-hmm.
because the writing is so fucking good and it's so fucking funny, that's why that shit does well. I could sit here and I could watch reruns of Shin Chan like I do a Family Guy or the Boondocks. That's
Yeah.
how funny that shit is.
Exactly.
Yeah, that shit is good. So when you're creating your project, I see you put yourself into the project. And two of the major aspects that I see is obviously the main character is named after you. But you also incorporated what I'm gonna assume is your religion, Christianity, into
Mm-hmm.
it. All right, so talk a little bit about that. What made you do that and kind of want to make it so personal?
So like I said, so growing up, basically being exposed to, everything from Naruto to Dragon Ball Z to Fairy Tail, SAO, all that stuff. I noticed that, all these stories were great stories. Don't get me wrong, they're great stories, and they're all roughly in terms of, um, I guess the genre and the world building is roughly the same. It's either fantasy driven, or if it is
Mm-hmm.
set in like modern world, it has some sort of twist on it. And before starting Chikara, I was working on another story. Um, Pretty much it was just an SAO. It was basically like an isekai before they became popular. Like you get transported to a fantasy world, and blah 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 blah. And writing that story, I realized something, at least about myself, that I wanted to I wanted to make something different, but not in the sense of just refurbishing something else and saying it's quote unquote different. I wanted to do something that really pushed the boundary and pushed the limit. And that was, a Christian manga. It's like never been done before, ever
Mm-hmm.
in the history of the industry, never been done before. And I wanted to do it in a way that Christians could read it, they could understand it, and they could be like, "Oh, I know what that means," or "This, I recognize this," or blah blah blah. But if you weren't a Christian at all, you could still read it and still just love it for the story and the action. Because a lot of people, just as I was starting it, were saying like, Christian manga, like, don't make, and these were just haters from YouTube or whatever, saying like
Yeah.
Christian manga, like no one's gonna read that. Like, why would you put religion to a manga? And I'm just like, well, if you're going to say that argument, then why do Asians put Buddhism references in manga? Why do they put
True.
um you know Japanese folklore into? I mean, Jujutsu Kaisen, Blue Exorcist, all these things have religion bases in them, but they don't want to say anything about it because it's coming from Japan. But now that American guys doing it with Christianity, now it's a quote unquote issue. So I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to make something that would kind of get people talking and get people eyes to be like Christian manga, whether it's a good or bad thing, like still like people being like, Christian manga, let me read this, and seeing that it's in a way to where I'm not forcing Christianity on you. It's just a story based upon, Christianity, and with the
Yeah.
twist, because it is fantasy influenced. Like, there's Kalani, she's a dog person. That's not real.
Yeah.
Like, it's a mix of a lot of different things that I took inspiration from and that I loved growing up, mixed in with my religion. So that way it's just something brand new, and it's something fresh and something unique.
Okay. All right. Cool. You said a bunch of different things that I was gonna touch on, and I can't even remember them, but no big deal. But yeah, like you were saying, uh, it's funny how people are so critical with like indie creators, and they kind of let that same shit slide for some of the bigger profiles. Like if you think about it, Christianity, that's like the second or the third biggest religion on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, yo, of course I'm gonna include this trait in there or something, because obviously it's something that you believe in. But there's also people that are gonna relate to that, and they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
gravitate to that shit. There are people that are against religion or things like that, which is totally fine, but that doesn't mean you can't like a project. Like, I'll watch different things from different cultures that I can't personally relate to, but I fucking like that shit. Like me and my wife, like we were sitting down one day and we were like, "Yo, look at the range." Like we were watching something with BMF. My wife is white. She has no idea anything about drug dealers or the black community or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's asking me questions. And on the flip side, we were watching that show on Netflix, Virginia, Georgia, or some shit like that. And I'm just asking her questions. I'm like, yo, is this like what y'all be doing? Like, it's just different shit like that. It's like, yo, people like you can like a project or a piece of material or a piece of content that doesn't really have anything to do with you. It's just, again, if the story is written cool, then you'll learn something about it or you'll relate to a character regardless of their religion.
Mm-hmm.
People are so weird with like how critical they are sometimes, but then at the same time, I could see where I'd be critical on some different things, depending if it's a major company that is just throwing money at something to milk it because of us. Then it's like you're playing with our money. Then that's a little bit different. It's different when you're creating your project and it's for free and it like means something to you, as opposed to a company that is, hey, we want to get your money, we're gonna do all of this shit and hope that we can take advantage of this community because their attention right now are these hot buttons. Then that's when you get into tricky territory.
Yeah, right? I agree.
Cool. Now, one of the things I was watching your videos and you were talking about diversity in manga and anime. Talk a little bit about that, because I had some stuff that I agreed with you with, but then there was some stuff that, not that necessarily that I don't agree with you, but I'll have questions about it because it's like you were talking about how things need to change or should be changing in the manga and anime world because it's majority people who are represented as, white people, let's say. Even in some Japanese projects, or most of the Japanese projects, they're kind of made to look like just regular white people.
Yeah.
Even though they speak Japanese. But then you were saying how we needed some diversity in them. So, like, for example, Naruto, they introduced the Cloud Village and they had the Reikage and Killer Bee and everybody, or different projects. So talk about that. How do you see manga and anime changing? How do you want it to change?
So I guess in my personal opinion, because I don't remember exactly what I talked about in the videos a minute, but I do remember some things. It's been a while. But my basic things are for diversity, right? So for my story, Chikara, and for Gun Game, my thing is with diversity, I want to make it as natural as possible. I don't want to force writing in characters for the sake of, like you said, bring in that demographic just for the sake of, I'm going to make a black character because that'll get like more black audiences. Like I want to make characters that I think are cool characters that might happen to be Indian, black, Native American, whatever the case may be. And when I make them, they're not just a white looking character with black hair and they're supposed to be quote unquote Native American, right? And they have no representation of their culture at all. I want to make them as authentic as I possibly can, interwoven into how I'm writing my story. And I feel like that's how naturally it should be, because I see a lot of creators, pushing for a specific demographic, which is cool if you have that demographic, but it's like, don't make it seem like it's for everybody, right? Don't put on this front like, oh, I'm making this story where it's called like, I don't know, something, or let's call it, just for lack of words, Afro Samurai. And you're like, oh, it's for black people need to read this. But then like you're trying to promote it to everyone as well. Like, if you have your group, your demographic, stick with that demographic. There's nothing wrong with that. Or vice versa, where it's like, like I said, creators will make like a white looking character and they give him black hair and all of a sudden they're supposed to be like black now just to like bring me in. Like, don't do that. Like try, at least try. Like, and my opinion on it, at least from that video, I was trying to make the point of if a Japanese person is making a manga based on Western culture and predominantly American culture, there has to be a mix of people in that story, because America is a mix of people. You can't just make a story based on Western culture and there's only white people or only Asian people, unless that's the what you call it, a specific time period or a specific place where white people or Asian people are more prevalent. If you're making a story, for example, like Jujutsu Kaisen takes place in Japan, it's about Japanese folklore, boom, make it all Japanese. but like
Mm-hmm.
don't bring in like or don't go to like let's say it's in America in New York, and which we both know New York has a very diverse community of
Yep.
everybody, and you only see
Yep.
white people. Like that's just not it's not factually like that's just not possible. So my thing is, if especially since the world draws from Western culture with music, with fashion, with predominantly I guess imports too. I think we still export stuff out, but it's like if you're taking that much inspiration and using black culture like for your music, for your fashion, then like don't be afraid to incorporate that with stories where there's probably going to be predominantly more people of color than white people. Just incorporate them naturally. Like we're not saying like make them look stereotypically black with like, big lips and cornrows, but like, study, like go on Google. There's tons of people that look like us, and me and you don't even look the same, but we're both black, so it's just like it's not that hard to like try to find
It's
ways to
definitely
incorporate it naturally.
it's definitely not. It's fucking black people all over fucking social media. Just type in
I
black Twitter
know.
and you can find plenty of examples of some black people, right? All kind of crazy looking ones, right? But yeah, so when Japanese, so it's like I don't fault Japanese projects for when they don't have diversity in them or when they don't have black people in them, because that's the majority of their culture isn't as diverse as America is.
Mm-hmm.
What I would hold accountable is for American projects to not be diverse. That's a little bit different. It's because hey, it's like yo, America is diverse. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, am I still going to watch something like? And I'm gonna transfer it a little bit, like Game of Thrones. 90% of Game of Thrones is white. I fucking loved it. I am a Game of Thrones fanatic. I have watched season 1 to 8 like a million times. And then House of Dragons came, so they sprinkled a little black people in it, right? I still liked it. I still loved it, but some people were like, oh, blah, 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 whatever they said. And it's like, you know, I can understand like sometimes like this world is predominantly white and there is another side of the world there it's a little bit more diverse. And if you build the story that way, especially in olden times like that, a lot of areas were predominantly one looking race and
Mm-hmm.
there were other areas that weren't race. So it kind of works for that world. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say the same thing for anime. Like you can have something like a Jujutsu Kaisen where it's more modern, it's in Japan. I haven't been to fucking Japan, but I'm gonna assume that it's not as diverse as like a Manhattan or New York City or
Mm-hmm.
even Atlanta. But or you'll have a world like Attack on Titan or like Naruto, where it's a fictional world and could
Mm-hmm.
be a little bit more diverse. I mean, it can, but then at the same time, it's like, yo, none of these characters, maybe Naruto, but like Kakashi don't really look like a real person. Like his hair,
Mm-hmm.
Sakura has pink hair naturally. Naruto's mom has like, so all of these people kind of don't have realistic features in real life, so they're able to get away with it. But I also, I don't really fault it at that point. I really would like to see American created manga or cartoons or comics that are diverse. Unless there is a specific story on a time period, like you said, if it's a specific time period and there was no black people there, I get it. If it's a specific time period in Africa and there's no white people there, I'm all for it too. Again, the story got to slap either way,
Mm-hmm.
regardless. So it doesn't matter to me. I just, I don't know if I'll fault a Japanese project if it's not too diverse. But again, it just depends.
Yeah, it all depends, and my thing with it was basically like if okay, so for example, like if me as a black man, right, I'm writing Chikara and Gun Game, but even before I started Gun Game, Chikara, when you look at just the faces in general of Chikara, like most of them are white, right, or just they're not brown. Diaz is the only lead role or second lead role, and she's brown. Everyone else after that, for the most part, is either from Asia or some form of white because it started in the U.S.
Yeah.
If I were to put that out, and if people realize that, I wouldn't say people, if some demographics would see me as like almost like a sellout, right? It's just like you're a black man. Why aren't you like making black characters? Why? Because I've been told that before. Why aren't you making like more black characters for your stuff? Why is the lead character not, a person of color? You're a person of color. But like, I just don't like that Asian people or anybody else can make stories, and there's nothing wrong with it. An Asian person that was born in Japan and not born in the U.S. can make their lead role blonde hair and blue eyes, and we'll eat it up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but I can't do that. So that was like my back and forth with it, which is like, they're marketing heavy towards the Western culture because they know there's a market here. And, my thing is if they're gonna market to us, market to us. Like, put in things that you like. As a creator, I want to pull from all demographics. I don't want to just pull from like one. I want to try and get as many as I can on my stuff. And I feel like that's how I think it should start being, rather than like, quote unquote, white people have the money, so let's make everyone look like them because they're going to buy more. When we both know that anime and manga is super, super big in the black community. It's just...
I mean, definitely now. I feel like now it's more...
Now, yeah.
I feel like manga, specifically like manga and anime, I feel like is massive within the minority community.
Minority.
Mm-hmm. Whatever you want to fucking name it. I don't fucking know. But in the beginning, for me, and I'm older, I'm about to be 34 in 2 months. So I'm getting, again, old as shit. Always got to call myself out on it. But when I was younger, it was very small amount of people. Fuck, skin color and everything. It was just a small amount of people that actually liked anime. And if you liked anime, you were like a nerd.
Yeah, and weird. And no, I agree.
In the black community and white community, and I grew up on Long Island, it was diverse as fuck. So there was all type, but it's like, if you got caught with fucking
like
anything
Pokemon cards
that looked fucking Asian, you were a nerd. Until there was some exceptions. So Pokemon was an exception, and Yu-Gi-Oh was an exception. Because they had the fucking cards in the games. But anything else like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Yu Hakusho, all this stuff, and then Adult Swim kind of made it a little bit cooler, but it was still very rare for people to even watch that. But then as I fucking got into college, there was like a whole fucking anime community that was just full of all different type of people that were playing video games and talking about anime. And I was like, this is fucking great. Where y'all been at my whole entire life?
No, I feel you. Some of my students now, and they're like 5th and 6th graders, are just openly, talking about Naruto or Attack on Titan or Demon Slayer, with me. And I'm sitting here, it's just like, if you would have mentioned that, like, back in, like, 2005 or 6 when I was your age, no one would ever want to talk to you again. Like, it's just... And I love that's how far we've come. I tell them all the time, it's just like, I love that you guys can talk about this stuff and not be bullied for it. Like, it's cool to see our progression as just the community, but as the world that anime is now. You can now love that and not be, ridiculed for it. Like, I think that's just really, really cool that we've come that far.
Yeah, like, you wasn't pulling no chicks talking about, did you watch that new Naruto, or did you watch, like, never. I kept that on the low. I hid that. I was like, how the LGBTQ community used to be, or like shit like that. Like, I was keeping that shit locked down. And then until you got like your girlfriend or whatever, and then you were already locked in, and then you would just have it on playing, and she was like, oh, you like this? And I was like, yeah, but you're already locked down, so, you can't get rid of me now.
I was telling my friends when like the Naruto run was like trending on TikTok, like I was like, it's crazy how when we used to do that on the playground, we were like such freaks to everyone. And now those same people are doing it as a trend. And I was just like, they just have no... I was just like, as long as you buy my products, I guess you cool. Like, because that's crazy. That's crazy.
I actually, this was maybe a couple years ago, maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. I actually went to speak to some kids at my junior high school, and like all of the classes that I spoke with, like it was with like my old teachers and stuff like that, but all of the kids loved anime, and I was able to connect with them like that. And it was like you said, it was like, if you like even mentioned you like anime, like you would get picked on. And like this was junior high and high school, so I can't really say like picked on, but like you would get shitted on at that age. But it was like, like it was just regular. It was like, Naruto, it's like, Attack on Titan, all of these, and then they're telling me anime that I never even heard before. And I'm like, this is great. I grew up in the wrong time, man. I should be way younger. It's like, yo, this is dope. And now it's like weird if you don't watch anime or if
Yeah.
you don't like anime. And I'm like, yo, this is like a beautiful thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that tells you how big the industry is going to be.
Yep.
It's right now it's a $22 billion industry. I think I read either Crunchyroll
Mm-hmm.
or Atsuko or somebody posted that, and I'm like, yo, that's a lot of money, but that's also nothing. That's like it's going to be massive
Oh,
in
for
like
sure.
the next 2, 5, 10 years from now. And it's cool because all of the people that I see that are creating their own indie projects, a lot of you guys are just like leveling up over time, and it's like, yo, it's bound to happen to where your fan base is just going to keep growing, and then you're going to be able to monetize somehow to where it's like, hey, if this isn't your main thing, you'll be able to capitalize off of it and do whatever the fuck you want to do. Or if this is your main thing, then you're fucking set. It's like you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to answer to anybody else but yourself, and you get to do what you fucking really love doing.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's fucking dope, man. That's fucking dope. And that's why I got into this, is because like I want to be able to do what I like doing, which is shit talk about all kind of nerd shit and make money on it and get paid, and then eventually put people in places or put people in a position and kind of grow this fucking whatever empire that I'm looking to go. I got like a whole fucking game plan on where I want to take this shit.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
And we definitely need more people like you that are doing this, because it's still, I don't want to listen to like, Joe Rogan talk about Naruto. Like, I would rather listen to you talk about it, because
I appreciate that. I listen to Joe Rogan all the time. Anytime he gets into conspiracy theories, aliens, ghosts, Bigfoot, like that's the Joe Rogan that I like. And he's even hunting. Like he just had, what's the dude? You watch that show, Man Eater, on Netflix. Oh, well, you don't have Netflix, but
I know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, he just goes around and he just like does different hunting expeditions. Like I like that stuff, but any of the other stuff I kind of like skip over. But yeah, I do want to be the go-to guy where I can use my platform to obviously elevate everybody that's on it. But I want to be that go-to guy. I want to be the person that people come to, where it's like, yo, what the fuck did Bminustv say? Yo, that shit was fucking crazy. Yo, we all agree with that. And I also want to be the person where it's like, yo, this guy fucking Bminustv, he's fucking crazy. Who the fuck even thinks like this? Like nobody. But that's how it is. Like think about when you were younger and you were sitting in the garage with your friends just shit talking about Batman Beyond and Static Shock and all of that shit, just hanging out for the summer. That's how I want people to feel when they come to all of my platforms, and we can just chop it up and just talk about all kind of shit like that.
Awesome, man.
Yeah, fucking dope. But yo, this was cool, man. I'm glad that I got to have you on here, learn a little bit more about you. I know we've only really communicated through like text, like DMs, right? We haven't like really like chopped it up, video, audio, or nothing like that.
We did that. Well, we did no, I don't think we did. No, you're right. You did the Chikara Volume 2 back in like 2000, what was that, 20?
Yeah, when you were talking about, I looked at my old artwork and I was like, yeah, it's just I'll think of the same thing with my videos, man. I'm like, yo, my older videos, but it's part of the fucking growth. It's like, sometimes you gotta like look back at your shit and it's just like, oh God, but you look at where you're at now and it's like, all right, cool, I fucking elevated. And then it's gonna be the same thing in a year from now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I remember that video still fucking gets views, man.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Still
That's
views.
cool.
There's a couple of the old videos that I created that get views. I know Chikara's one, Fallen Angels one, Godhood, the antagonist is one, and there's another one. I can't remember the name. But those videos just keep climbing. So eventually I'll be able to like revamp them, but I also want to broaden because I feel like I've put myself in a bubble and I want to like expand because I know there's more indie creators that I'm just not like reaching. So I'm trying to kind of cross that barrier now. Yeah. So dope, man. But yeah, appreciate you hopping on, man. Is there anything that you want to plug before we cut out of here?
Well, guys, as you know, if you want to find out more about what I do and what I create, my Instagram is probably the best place to find me. It's just Chris_Burns. It's probably gonna be on the screen here. I'll put it on that edit. That's the best place to find my other platforms, and to just on a day-to-day basis see what I'm working on, announcements for Chikara, stuff for Gun Game. That's the best place to be. But other than that, guys, I'm pretty much just always creating, and if you have any questions, feel free to message me. I try to get back to everybody, if I can, and helping out the community in little ways.
There we go. There we go. And make sure you guys subscribe to his YouTube channel too. There's a lot of good shit on there. And I actually know what we're gonna talk about during Patreon. So YouTube, catch you guys later. Peace out. Make sure you guys subscribe to the Patreon, and we'll see you guys over there. Later.